Hey guys, I'm Justin Z and I'm showing you how to use Final Cut Pro X. In this video we're getting started. I'm going to show you a basic overview of the entire interface. I'm going to show you the differences, and it's just really basic, but I'm going to show you the differences and the commonalities as well as where everything is placed. So here we go. So this is Final Cut Pro X. It looks almost entirely different. The first thing that you will notice is that it is not separate windows. Whenever I try and change things around, the entire window is affected. Notice that I cannot make any changes to windows themselves. I can't make them bigger or smaller. I can't move them around. I can't decide where they go. I can't do anything like that. They're set the way they are. But they've kind of optimized this space, so when you need to add something on, like a color correction board or things like that, there's ways to do that. So the first thing right here is the event library. Events are basically the replacement of projects. When you import an event, you are importing a series of clips, and you can name that event. You cannot have timelines as a part of this. You can have images and you can have certain types of files, but you can't have timelines. Timelines are separate now, and I'll show you why. You can have folders within each event, but basically events are now meant to store footage, and they're meant to be entirely separate from projects. So, on the right next to the event library is the browser. You can look at all your clips right here, and you can organize them in different ways. I'll go over that in a separate movie. And when you look at each clip, you can decide to look at them, browse through them by skimming them. You can either press the space bar and play it, or you can skim through it with your mouse. Down here are a few options, including making the event browser go away, settings to make it so you can group things, whether it be your events or your clips. You can change the mode in which you look at each of your clips, like so. It's a little bit more like iMovie, which I don't necessarily recommend. And then you have a search bar right up here, which is pretty new when it comes to finding different clips, because there wasn't a search bar in the previous version of Final Cut Pro. Over here we have the viewer. This is obviously where you can look at things. In the previous version of Final Cut, there were two viewers. The first viewer was to look at clips that were in your browser. The second one was to look at clips in your timeline. Well, all that's changed. Now the viewer is meant to be looked at through the timeline and through the browser. It's all right here. Over here is the inspector. This normally isn't here when you first open Final Cut. It's normally gone. But if you wanted to find it, you can go to here. It says Hide Inspector right now, but that's obviously because it's there. If it were hidden, it would say Show Inspector. And just to give you a general idea of how Final Cut Pro is organizing itself when it comes to new windows, I'll go ahead and hide it, and it automatically sets up the whole thing. So let's go ahead and show that inspector again and click on one of my clips. When you click on the clip, you get a whole bunch of options. You get the option to change the color, to transform it, to crop it, distort it, do all kinds of different things. Same thing with the audio. You get a few options for changing around your audio, and I'll go over the details later. And then you get your info. When it was created, the size, the frame rate, whether it's in stereo or not, the name of the clip, which you can change. You can add notes, the start and end points, the total duration, the audio sample rate, things like that. You can also change the types of views that are set up. And you can change the settings as to how you see the information that is being displayed to you. In the viewer, you can play the clip, pause it, go frame for frame, go to the beginning of the clip, the end of the clip, and you have your transform options right here. I'll go over all those as well. This little option allows you to set up full frame playback. Press the escape button to get rid of that. And then, of course, if you press this little button right here, it will loop it. And you have the ability right here to set up how large the picture is, whether it be 50%, full size, or fit to the screen. And then you have some options here to display video scopes, set up alpha channels, decide which channel you want to look at, things like that. Right down here you have the timeline. This is also the project bar. The project bar is when you are looking at different timelines, and I'll go over that in a second. But right here is the timeline. The blue bits are clips, the green bits are audio, and they're separate audio. You notice that because you see the waveform on the video, that the video is now one and the same with the audio. You can separate the audio and you can do different things to it, like keyframe it and change the levels, things like that. Add transitions, and by the way, that's what a transition looks like now. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can actually see what they look like. That's what a transition looks like now. The graphics implementation is changed entirely, so it's important for you to understand and get used to it. When it comes to the timeline, some of the more basic things that you should know is that when you create clips and you move a clip into the timeline, it does not allow you to create empty space, which the previous version of Final Cut used to allow you to do, but not anymore. So it's important for you to understand that. I will go through other videos that show you exactly how the timeline works, how you import clips, etc. You also notice that I am skimming through this footage. Basically, what that means is that I am moving my mouse, but I am not clicking and dragging, and I am able to watch the footage if I want to. There are options to turn that on or off, which are right here. You can turn off the skimming entirely, or you can turn it on and turn on audio skimming, which allows you to hear the audio as you're skimming through. So, right here on top of the timeline is three very important things to know. One is the audio meter. Two is the playhead, which allows you to let you know where you are in the player, and the third is the background renderer. This basically lets you know what information is rendering while you're working, and you can click on that and you get this little window right here, which gives you details on that. I'll go over that as well in another video. Over here is your toolbar. The toolbar is no longer on the side. It's kind of hidden. This allows you to click all the different tools. There's a few tools that have been added and a few tools that have been taken away. Basically, you can still do all the same things. They've just consolidated to be a little bit more efficient, or at least one thinks it would be more efficient. I think it's more efficient. You might disagree. This is definitely a big change from the old Final Cut. These are the options for allowing you to insert your clips over here. Allowing you to put in clips on top of your previous timelines, insert them between clips, or put them at the end of the clips. Over here are favoriting options for clips in the browser. This basically allows you to favorite a clip for future reference, unfavorite it, or reject it. This is the import button that allows you to import video from a video camera or a webcam. I'll go more over that because a lot of the import options have been limited when it comes to the new Final Cut. And this is a series of clips that are listed inside your timeline. If you have a whole bunch of clips and you're trying to find a specific one by name, you can find it through a list right here. And you notice that they're symbolized in different ways. And they're called compound clips, they're called clips in different numbers and names, and there's different types of clips out there now that are consolidated in different ways that Final Cut has utilized to its advantage. Basically new features. So, basically in order to create a timeline, you need to start out with the projects folder. It's going to start out here and it's going to have nothing on it. It's going to say click here to create a new project, and it'll ask you to name it. When you look at each of these timelines, you'll notice that it's under the Macintosh HD. If you have a separate hard drive, it'll also show up and you can choose to save your timelines there. Just understand that timelines or projects are entirely different from events. You will be able to save your events into save your timelines into an event, but I'll go over that later. Just understand that they are now separate entities entirely. So each of these projects you can skim through to look at them to figure out if they're yours or not. And then when you're ready to pick the one you want, you double click on it and it accesses the timeline. And you click this little button right here in order to go back to the project folder. And finally, of course, you have the decibel meter right here, which lets you know where your decibels are. This can be hidden as well. If you want to access or make any of these windows go away, you go to Window, and all of these options right here, hide, project library, event library, etc., are the ones that you can do. If you want to look at the original layout, you click Revert to Original Layout, and this is the layout that you will first see when you open up Final Cut for the first time. Just the event library, browser, the viewer, the timeline, and the lists. And of course, if you don't have a timeline set up, then it'll be the project area and there will be nothing here. So that's a really brief overview of how the Final Cut Pro interface looks. If you were confused by anything or if I went too fast for you, please send me an email to requests@mahalo.com. It's a much easier interface to use, and it still has a lot of the same basic editing capabilities of Final Cut, but there are some things missing when it comes to some of the things we know and cherish for Final Cut. So believe me when I say I feel you. If you have any questions regarding this, or with Final Cut in general, please send me an email to requests@mahalo.com. Thanks for watching, guys. Please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe.